Okay, I'm ready to go here. Maybe just a little bit late, but I'm here. How is everybody tonight? I'm doing very well. It's a beautiful day here in Clearwater Beach, Florida. I think I say that almost every Monday, right? I don't mean to rub it in. It's just true. We did get a little rain. When was it? Maybe Saturday, Friday? No. Yeah, Saturday. We had some rain move through here, but that was about it. It was beautiful out there. And speaking of which, I have a beautiful show for all of you tonight. Worked on it hard last night and then today, putting together everything that I thought you might find interesting. And you can see the topics that I will surely get to tonight. We're going to take a look at the Florida disappearance of Brandy Hall. It's a somewhat well-known disappearance, but my perception is that hasn't been featured a lot, at least in the work that I do every day. I have to admit that I came across it in the last couple days, like, oh yeah, that disappearance, and I don't think that I've ever talked about it on the live show. So I'm going to give her disappearance an analysis tonight. Also want to go over that crypto disappearance. I surely did talk about it a year ago when it happened. I'm talking about this older gentleman in California who is still missing. And it has to do maybe with his son being into cryptocurrency. And this man is missing, but somebody allegedly stole a bunch of his money and turned it into gold and everything. I want to take another shot at that case, which is still unsolved, and take a look at it again if anybody's forgotten about it. I didn't realize it's been a year. Time flies by so fast. And then I want to take a look at the disappearance of Melissa Casias. I see that her disappearance is getting some attention. I think it is considered to be one of the disappearances that all of the 3 a.m. Reddit people are trying to connect as some sort of government conspiracy or something like that, because she was involved with the Jet Propulsion Lab, and did she have any knowledge of UFOs, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So I'm going to take a look at her case as well. And I have other things on the agenda. We'll just have to see how far I get with everything tonight. While you are watching / listening tonight here, May 4th, yes, May the 4th be with you. As you are watching / listening tonight, I hope you will consider supporting Unfound in a variety of locations. Patreon.com / Unfound podcast. PayPal.me / Unfound podcast. If you are in the chat, if you are doing the live thing on Monday nights, you can contribute through the super chat, which is down there somewhere below where everybody can comment and say hi and everything. And then there's also the join button on YouTube if that is how you are watching. And you also see what they call the overlay. If you ever wondered what that's called, the little signage that will be accompanying a video. I'm sure you watch many other YouTube channels where people have things up, little pictures or frames or whatever. That's called the overlay. And you can see the overlay that I have there for the consulting that I've started. Do you need help? missingpersonsconsulting.com. So there's that. Let's see who is in here very early in the show. And then I'll get into kind of how my week has been. Hello, Charlie. What's going on? Lisa, good to see you. Good to see you. Looking forward to hearing what Ed has to say tonight. You know what? I'm looking forward to what I have to say tonight, too, Lisa. What a coincidence. Hello, Dee. Wonder Woman, how are you? Dee, good to see you. I hope you got my message. Unfortunately, Dee and I will not be able to get together this Thursday night to discuss whatever Dee would have on the agenda. I'm actually going to see the Iron Maiden movie on Thursday evening. If you don't know, they have a documentary movie called Burning Ambition, which is the name of a song. It wasn't on any of the albums. It was like a B-side for one of their singles way back in the day. But yeah, it's in limited release, limited theaters. It's just playing for a few days. And myself and my buddy Dana, who's also a huge Iron Maiden fan, we will be going to see that on Thursday evening right here in Pinellas County, Florida, kind of down near St. Petersburg area. I think the movie starts at 6 o'clock. Really looking forward to it. It's already gotten some reviews by music journalists, and they're saying it's very good. Going back to the beginning, the ups and downs of the band through the years, and I'm really, and so yeah, it's in a real theater, and this is really going to be the first theater I've been in. I used to go to the movies all the time, especially when I was in Las Vegas. Kind of gotten away with it. Let's just like I think many people have. It's probably going to be the first time I have been in a movie theater since I went to see Top Gun 2 or whatever they call it, Maverick or whatever it's called. That was the last time I was in a theater. So I'm really looking forward to that, especially since it's Iron Maiden and everything. So, and of course, if you didn't know, Iron Maiden has finally been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they will not be able to go to the induction ceremony because they will be on tour. But they are finally in. So I'm looking forward to, I'm sure Thursday, it's one of those things. Is it going to take forever to get to Thursday, or is it going to take forever? I'm really looking forward to Thursday. So there you go. Hello, Amy, Charlie, good evening, Michelle. And yeah, sorry about that, D. If you want to reschedule, we can do that. Hello, Stacy. Stacy, yeah. It's the movie is being shown in a variety of theaters across the United States, but it's only for a couple days. So if you are an Iron Maiden fan, check your local listings. It's probably really limited to, urban areas like here in the Tampa area. My guess is also there's probably theaters showing it in maybe Miami and then maybe Orlando, maybe. The big cities across the United States, New York, LA, Chicago, Houston. But I think you're not going to find it in some maybe secondary theater somewhere. So if you are an Iron Maiden fan, this should be on your list. So hello, Alicia. Hey, Ed. Happy Monday. Happy Monday to you. I'm going to try to turn this into a fun day for everybody. And Glenn, good to see you. Glenn coming to us from the great state of Michigan. So what is going on since we all got together? I had kind of a good and bad week of trivia. This past Saturday, the team I was on and I play with over there at Sharks came in second. not horrible, but we were in first place halfway through. So you kind of feel, at least in my mind, maybe we kind of gave it away a little bit. But the problem was we didn't know the final answer anyway. So even if we had been in first place going to the final question, I think we would have not won anyway. So we came in second. Just have to be happy with that. But then last Wednesday, really, really, really myself, not the team, but myself, really, I feel I really let my team down last Wednesday because the final question, you should know I really beat, you should know I am a person who is very hard on himself. All right. I do a lot of negative talk, let's say. I've always been like that. That's not something new. When I think that I've let myself down, when I think that I've let other people down, I'm very competitive. Going back to my high school athletic days or whatever else. And even when, disc golf and even with my singing and everything, I'm very competitive. I have high standards. I have a problem just doing things, just doing things to enjoy things. And so when it comes to trivia, all these years that I've been playing it here in Florida, I'm a competitive guy. And I'm not one who goes to have fun. My idea of having fun is non-competitive stuff, like going to Disney or like, going like on an RV trip with my brother Brian or, going, of course, getting the car that I've gotten within the last month, those things, of course, spending a lot of money there, but those things to me are fun. But when it comes to trivia and things like that, I only have fun if I win. And I kind of let my team down. It was a in the movie Casablanca question. The movie Humphrey Bogart from 1941, considered to be one of the most well-known movies of all time, one of the best reviewed thing of all time. And it was a question about that movie, and I was very indecisive about it. And because of that, we didn't put any points on it, and many other teams got it right. And frankly, I'm still ticked off about it. Just the way I am. I have high standards for myself, and should have known it. And so that was not a very good trivia night. We are struggling a little bit this season to get those final questions. We have not gotten a final question right, and we still have a ways to go. There's still some time to pull it all together. But the thing is, I'm probably the only person on the team who thinks like this because I'm just competitive. And I don't make any excuses about it. And I know probably over the years that's made it maybe a little uncomfortable for other people. But, we are going there. We are devoting, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of our night at a particular location. We're spending money. We might as well win while we're there. If we're going to be there, we might as well win. So that's always been my attitude. And so we were in second going to the final question, and we finished way down. We got passed up by a bunch of people. And luckily, on those occasions, I get to come home to an empty house, because if I were in a relationship or something like that, I would have been miserable to be around. And I was still miserable on Thursday, and I'm still miserable now. So there you go on that. We'll just have to try to do better on Wednesday, and we'll just have to see. We'll put my ego to the test as well. Moving on, as I wrote in the write-up, if you saw on YouTube tonight, I put this in the what would be covered tonight, and that was I actually got pulled over in my car a couple nights ago. What night was it? It was Saturday night. I was out and I went to trivia. Like I said, over at Sharks. And then I went and took a little cruise around and stopped at a cafe that there aren't many places around here, like coffee type places, just hangout places that are open late. And this is one of the places that I go to. Just went there, hung out for a while. And then I was driving home, got onto Gulf Boulevard, way down like Indian Rocks Beach. LaFord, you didn't mention that in the think tank, did you? I did not. What, getting pulled over? No, I did not, LaFord. This is new information for everybody. But I was just cruising along, minding my own business, was not speeding or anything. And the Pinellas County Sheriff's SUV was sitting there along the road. And, I'm kind of well aware of it now. Of course, my previous car was a white Sonata, which is like invisible. There's like a million of them on the road. Although I got pulled over in that car back in October, November, if you'll remember. But now that I have this car, I try to be much more aware that, the cops are just looking for any reason. They are looking for any reason. It's not like I'm driving a Corvette or Ferrari or Porsche, but still. And it's red. So I'm really, really, really playing things safe. So I'm just cruising. I'm coming up toward my place on Gulf Boulevard, past this Pinellas County Sheriff's Office car vehicle, and I'm well below the speed limit. The speed limit's like 35. I'm doing like 30 miles an hour or something. I'm like in third gear or something. And the car pulls out, pulls up behind me, and turns his lights on. I'm thinking, what did I do? What did I do? I wasn't speeding. So as you're pulling over to the side of the road, I know I wasn't speeding, and I'm thinking, when I pulled onto Gulf Boulevard, did I come to a full stop? Did I use my turn signal? All of you have probably gotten pulled over at least once. You're going through, what did I do? Of course, if you know you're speeding, it's that. But, have you ever been pulled over and not sure why you're getting pulled over? And so I'm going through all these reasons, all these reasons. What did I do? What did I do? I don't know. And so I pulled over, stopped the car. Of course, it's a manual, pulled the emergency brake, put it in neutral, shut the car off, put my window down. And I must have sat there for like it seemed like 10 minutes, but it was probably just a minute. And instead of the cop, or technically sheriff's deputy, coming up on the driver's side, because it's a narrow 2-lane right there, he comes up on the passenger side and knocks on my window. So I didn't put that window down. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Sorry. And keep in mind, I'm a concealed carry holder. So I have my gun on me, and so that's on my mind. Dude, not illegally, totally legal, but put the passenger side down, and as the window's going down, I was telling him, sorry, I didn't know didn't know you were going to come up on the passenger side. Sorry. And he goes, do you know I pulled you over? I said, no, I don't. He goes, and he went on to explain, but being that my mind was kind of racing and my heart rate was up a little bit, I wasn't totally hearing him. And when he said what he said, I said back to him, somebody took my license plate. Because remember, I have a personalized license plate of the podcast. It says Unfound on it, although the O is actually a 0. That wasn't something I planned. But I said, I'm looking over at him across, of course, across the passenger seat. I'm by myself at him, and it's dark, and the lights are flashing and everything. I'm like, somebody took my license plate. And he goes, no. The I can't read your license plate because the bulbs are out. I was like, oh, you mean the bulbs? I'm like, the light bulbs? Yeah. And because you also have to remember there's a new law here in Florida about if you have license plate frames, they've really cracked down on that if your license plate just even touches like the letters Florida or whatever, the little letters or anything, they can pull you over. I don't have a license plate frame. So I'm thinking that he says, no, the bulbs, I can't read your license plate. Your bulbs are out. He goes, you didn't know that? I said, I have no idea. He goes, is this your car? I said, yeah, but in my defense, I've only had it for a little over a month, but this is all news to me. I didn't know. And that's the truth. I had no idea. He said, well, let me see your driver's license. So I have to get my driver's license out. And anytime I use my driver's license, as I'm handing it to him and saying, this is when I had short hair, because my license plate picture is like from 10 years ago. So he takes it. He goes back to the car, and I'm thinking, my license plate bulbs. And I'm thinking, I've passed a lot of cops in this car since I got it at night. No problem. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, am I going to get a ticket? What's going to happen? And it's really weird because my brother Brian, not the last time he was here, but the time before that, he got pulled over after he left my place because the rear taillights on his truck weren't working. And it was because somehow he lost that fuse disappeared from the fuse box. So who knows how long he's been cruising around at night with no taillights. And he got pulled over by a Clearwater police officer, and she let him go with just a warning as well. So as I'm thinking that, I'm hoping I just get off with a warning too. And I did. The guy ended up coming back like a minute later, gives me my license plate back. No ticket, just get that fixed. No problem. I said, I apologize. I had no idea. He said, no problem. And I got to go on my way. So you can be rest assured, on Sunday morning, first thing, went to the auto parts store and got light bulbs. And both light bulbs were out. He was right. Both of them were out. They may have just gone out. It very well could be I got the car. Of course, you really don't check that kind of thing. It very well could be that at least one of the bulbs was working when I got the car back at the end of March, but maybe that bulb finally went out. There are actually two bulbs, two different ones. And my guess is they'll let you go if one is out, but if the other one goes out. And so I'm thinking that maybe one of them was working when I bought the car and then it finally went out. And that's why I didn't get pulled over until Saturday night. But the guy was real cool about it, unlike when I got pulled over for allegedly speeding back in November. And so I went and did that yesterday. So that is my getting pulled over story. But I would admit, as I was sitting there waiting for him to come up originally, I was like, I know I did not do anything wrong. I know that I did. I mean, you don't know. I've been really paranoid about this. Not getting on it, even though it'd be easy to do in this car. And I was even thinking, what even flashed across my mind was, could there be like an APB out for like a all red Mustangs? Did somebody in a red Mustang commit a robbery? And they're just pulling all over all red Mustangs. That even crossed my mind. Because like I said, I just knew I did not do anything wrong driving. I knew that the registration's turned in. I know that I have insurance, and thought that the license plate's on the car and everything else. It's just really weird when you get pulled over and you really, really, really can't figure out what is going on. At least back in November when my brother Michael was with me and I got pulled over, kind of had the idea that it might be for speed, even though I still insist I wasn't speeding. I know that area is a place, and I even saw cops sitting there when we went by there, and I know Michael and I didn't think twice about it. But we got pulled over, and it was like, was I speeding? I don't think I was speeding. I still don't think I was speeding. But this, I was really, really clueless. Lisa, I know someone who got pulled over for that ball bout, and he got a DUI that night. Yeah, well, I never worry about that, Lisa, because I don't drink and don't do any mind-changing drugs or anything. I just take my prescription meds. Hello, I'm a dinosaur. Well, are you a dinosaur? What kind of dinosaur? If you were a dinosaur, what kind of dinosaur would you be? RE or RB or R8. Florida has some horrible speed traps and corrupt, etc. I don't know about the corruption. You probably find corruption anywhere. But as far as speed traps, I do agree with you. Especially like over where I got pulled over in November, coming from Clearwater over the causeway into Clearwater Beach. Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. That is the local one, and I know it, and that's why I still insist that I wasn't speeding that night, because I know all about it. So, name's Rex. Good one. All right, I'm a dinosaur. And, yeah, that's funny. But I don't know. I mean, corruption happens everywhere. It sucks. And the truth is, I've been pulled over, I wouldn't say quite a few times in my life, but it is amazing how many of those interactions have been terrible. It is amazing how many of them, the problem, well, not on Saturday night, that guy, totally fine. Totally. I was wrong. Those lights shouldn't have been out. I didn't know, but certainly those light bulbs should be working. No argument. He was cool about it, though. But it is amazing how many times you get pulled over, and it's like the cop is trying to have an argument with you. It's like they're trying to, I don't want to say entrap you, but entice you into arguing with them. It is amazing how many times, and this, I used to think this, like when my 20s, when I got pulled over a few times, I thought, oh, it's because I'm in my 20s and everything. No, I'm still 55 and I still think that same way. It's the same thing in a different state 30 years later. I still get that kind of idea. All right. This is why the one time when I got pulled over, and I was speeding, and it was a speed trap, but I was speeding. Back in 2006, the Nevada State cop comes up to me and he's asking me questions. I'm just like, just give me the ticket. All right. Don't give me a lecture. I was 36 at the time. I don't need a lecture. I know you're going to give me a ticket. Just give me the ticket and let's just go on about our day. This isn't a classroom setting. All right. Now, if I have to sit here and listen to you preach and I get out of the ticket, okay. But if you're going to preach and I get a ticket, just give me the ticket. Just do it. It's okay. And I ended up getting that ticket fixed anyway. So there's that. All right. So I told you about me getting pulled over. Still sucks. Always going to suck. Always. Even though the shout out to whatever that deputy's name was, didn't see it. I thought he was very mild-mannered. I think that he understood. He believed me, and I was telling the truth. I think he understood, and although it's a very, very small infraction, but I'm guessing there are people out there who have gotten tickets for that. So I just got off with a warning, and I took care of it Sunday morning. All right, let's get to tonight's show, and I have to start here. Being that, of course, just recently John Lorden and I did a show together. Of course, John did a spectacular job in his coverage of Haidar Abu Shakra's disappearance. Really enjoyed working with him on that. But if you don't know, I know a lot of you do follow his YouTube channel. You're fans of his, as you should be. But if you don't know, and he's already announced it, so I'm not speaking out of school. He has been diagnosed with cancer. He got diagnosed a while ago, and you know, I knew about it because it happened right in the middle of us working together on Haydar's all the information. And we had worked out a schedule of when I was going to release and when he was going to release and everything. And then he told me, and he goes, I'm going to have to put things on hold for a little bit. And of course, I'm totally understanding. And but of course, can't say anything either. But a few of you have messaged me, emailed me, and asked me if I knew. And I'm like, yeah, I knew. But I'm inclined to believe that he's going to pull through it very fine. He's been diagnosed with throat cancer, and but it sounds to me like they caught it pretty early, and coincidentally, last year, a member of my former trivia team, the trivia team that I was on for years and years and years, that won a lot, one of my trivia members on that team got the same cancer. He's in like his mid to late 60s, and he has pulled through, fine. And I think he is cancer free now. Of course, that's something that you have to remain vigilant about for the rest of your life and everything. But so John's going to be going through the treatments. So I have known about this for a while. Of course, he only told me. I'm sure he would not have told me had we not worked on it. It was just the way things worked out, surely. But he felt an obligation to tell me because we had worked something out about the timing of the episodes, and then he probably figured I'm not going to be able to meet that obligation. And so, he had to, I guess, felt he had to give me an explanation. I really appreciate that. And of course, I was going to keep that off the record, but now he's gone public with that. Other than that, I don't know any more than any of you do now that it's been made public. Certainly I know about cancer because it runs in my family. Both of my biological parents died of cancer. My brother Brian had cancer. Things pop up, little skin cancer things with my siblings and everything. So far, I've avoided all of that. I just was checked all over my body for skin cancer back in January. I feel spectacular, as you know. But so John and I talked about that. But as far as I can tell, I think that he's going to make a full recovery. Of course, I'm not a doctor. But I'm sure if you are a believer in such things, thoughts and prayers being sent his way, I'm sure that he will enjoy getting messages from you, emails, messages on his YouTube channel, comments, and everything like that. So I would surely urge you to do that for sure. I don't know what he's going to be doing with the YouTube channel for now. And of course, with throat cancer, it certainly can affect your voice depending on where it is and everything. If we wanted to use maybe a kind of a similar example, it would be like Bruce Dickinson, lead singer Iron Maiden. He was diagnosed with mouth cancer. He had a pretty big tumor, like at the base of his tongue. About 10 years ago, of course, he was a singer. He recorded their album, and then after that, he wasn't feeling so great. And he recovered. And, of course, he's still singing his butt off to this day. So I'm inclined to believe that that John will be back in no time. I anticipate that his voice will be fine and he'll be back to 100%. But like I said, if you are so inclined, please send him as many messages and thoughts and prayers in the privacy of your own home as you can. Of course, we need more people like John in the true crime community, and we need John to stick around for as long as possible. So there you go. Moving on. The newest Unfound now is out. Take a look at a disappearance from Muskegon Heights, Michigan, up there in Glenland, Glen from Michigan. And take a look at this guy in his 30s who took off seemingly in his girlfriend's Jeep, and then it was found burned. He is still missing. This happened at the end of February, still missing. I took a look at that. And then for the found people, all you YouTube and Patreon supporters, I took a look at the disappearance to discovery of Edgar Ladalip from Canada. Very interesting disappearance to discovery. And to be able to partake in that, you must be a YouTube supporter, not just a subscriber to this channel, but actually hit the join button below. And then for all the Patreon people, you have to be at least the $5 a month level. And I've been doing those found episodes for like 4 years or something. And what I do is I take a look at all of those disappearances that were eventually resolved. Some very famous ones like the Titanic, and then some obscure ones as well. And I try to analyze, well, how is it that this person or object went missing? And then how was it that eventually the case was eventually solved? And so that is the series called Found. So there you go. LaFord, I was wondering if you were going to talk this, about John. Hello, Amy. Thank you. TD says, watch John's videos. Yes, LaFord. That Unfound was a good one. Oh, thank you, LaFord. You're very kind. Thank you. Yeah. Everybody just go watch it. Please, if you have questions, comments, the comment section is open for that most recent one regarding the recent disappearance of Lee Longmire, Longmire. Hello, Fishing. What's going on? Other news before I get into the topics, those 3 topics for tonight. I want to remind all of you, of course, this is May. And you'll remember some months ago, I was telling you about how I was going to be going to this convention. It was not supposed to be this coming weekend, but a week and a half from now. It's not happening. I've already talked about the reasons for that. And, it's weird how that worked out and what has now happened to John, because it's surely the case that with his condition now, he would not have been able to go. And he was the one who kind of got me invited to this in the first place. And he and I were looking forward to meeting up and maybe doing some karaoke. We talked about doing karaoke and stuff. Well, now the convention's not happening, but I'm guessing John wouldn't have been able to go because of his treatments anyway. So it's weird how that worked out. But just to remind all of you, that's not happening. I know some of you had expressed the the desire to maybe go to this, which was going to be in Tennessee, and it's not happening now. And of course, I would have enjoyed meeting however many of you there would have been, but that is not happening now. It's going to get rescheduled. I just don't know when that's going to happen. LaFord, not surprised at the situation with the Unfound Now situation. Very common regarding Lee. Yeah, LaFord. Yeah. Once again, everybody go check it out. I don't want to talk about it too much. That's what the episode is for. But certainly, if you have questions, comments, please post them in the comments section for that video, and I will be happy to follow up on them. All right, let's go to where do I want to go first regarding all this? I think I want to go to this crypto Disappearance as well. There's a follow-up article on this because today, May 4th of 2026, it's been exactly a year since this guy was reported missing. And I know that back then I talked about it. I'm not saying it was exactly the week after it was reported, but certainly during the summer last year, I made some comments on this. And so I feel motivated to maybe just go another layer deeper into this and using my disappearance analysis skills to see what we can get out of this. I come away thinking that the story that is trying to be pushed here doesn't seem very probable to me, and I'll get into that. Did anyone say May the 4th be with you yet? Not to me, LaFord, not to me. But if you're saying that to me now, you are the first. Thank you. You know, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. I've seen the first 3 movies. I saw the prequels that came out in the early 2000s. They were not very good. I really like The Mandalorian. I do have Disney Plus. I've watched it. I know the movie's coming out. I haven't decided if I'm going to go watch the movie or not. I love Baby Yoda. That's a fantastic character. But you know, the newer movies with all of that, The Force Awakens, I've seen a couple of them. I thought they were terrible. I thought that the one movie that kind of stands on its own, it's like everything up to the beginning of A New Hope, and it actually ends with Darth Vader getting ready to go on to that ship at the beginning of what we now call Star Wars from 1977. I thought that was a Rogue One or whatever it's called. I thought that was pretty good, but for the most part, not been a big fan of what Disney has done with Star Wars over the last 15 years. Once again, except for The Mandalorian. So when it comes to May the 4th be with you, I have to say I'm kind of the same way with Star Trek. I have Paramount Plus. I've not watched any of the. I love Star Trek. There's just so much stuff, and I don't have the time. So I can't even tell you if any of the new stuff is good with Star Trek, but I have caught some of the Star Wars stuff, and I haven't thought it's very good. Me either, LaFord. D, I have to agree with you on all of it, Ed. But you are my only friend who would have gotten that one. May the 4th, I guess. I don't know. I thought that was a pretty common thing, especially if people of a certain age, being kind of a Gen Xer myself. Okay. Let's take a look at this crypto disappearance. I'm going to read you an article that came out just within the last couple of days. Federal agents have joined the search for Nai Ping Hao, or Hou, H-O-U, a 74-year-old Rancho Cucamonga, been there, man whose son is a high-profile cryptocurrency investor. Nai Ping was reported missing on May 4th, 2025, so exactly a year ago. According to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, his son, Wen Hao, said the last time he saw his father was during a fishing trip they took in San Pedro in March. So, he hadn't seen him for a month and a half. He was in a very good mood when told Next Star's KTLA. He caught a lot of fish. His friends were there too. He was very happy. A few weeks later, Wen became concerned when his father's text messages seemed out of character. He now believes someone else may have been using his father's cell phone. Always saying he's tired and he'll call me later, just reasons that were strange, Wen said. He had very short responses and didn't share photos anymore over the course of those couple of weeks. When friends visited Nai Ping's Rancho Cucamonga home in May, they found the residence, his home, had been emptied. The interior had been renovated. I'm going to come back to this. The interior had been renovated and repainted. And there were no signs of the 74-year-old. His cars were also missing from the garage. Authorities later reviewed Naiping's bank accounts and on July 9th confirmed that extensive fraudulent transactions were conducted around the time of his disappearance. So he goes missing, at least reported on May 4th. And it's not until over 2 months later that I guess they checked his bank accounts. That seems like a long time to wait to do that. I don't know the reason for that. His money was also gone, Wen said. We were able to track the financial transactions. More than $1 million was withdrawn from his account to purchase physical gold online. Family members believe Naiping was kidnapped. The suspect or suspects also reportedly attempted to sell his vehicles and rent out his home. His wife was out of the country visiting family in China when he went missing, loved ones said. Investigators with the FBI launched a joint investigation with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department about a month ago. While law enforcement continues searching for Naiping, his family is also desperately seeking answers, offering a $250,000 reward for information that helps solve his disappearance. Naiping is described as an Asian man who stands 5'7" and weighs about 170 pounds. He has dark hair, dark eyes, and a birthmark on his upper left chest. Anyone who may know Naiping's whereabouts or has information is asked to call Detective Vinayas Kazada at 909-890-4848. The public can also leave anonymous tips by calling or contacting the family through text message, WhatsApp, or Signal at 213-564-9366. Tips can also be submitted through Telegram at Naiping How Tips Bot. All right, so we have this older gentleman, married, but his wife was gone at the time this all happened. His son starts getting these strange messages from him, kind of, this isn't how my father acts. Finally acted on it. They go down, the cars are gone. The house is empty, but it's been renovated and repainted. I guess they mean on the inside. And somebody was trying to rent it out. And also, although not in this article, it was saying that somebody was trying to sell Naiping's car or cars as well. So my first question is, whatever happened, and they still don't know who did this? I think you can understand what I'm saying here. Somebody took him, and so the people who took him also have skills in renovating homes on the inside. That seems unlikely. Maybe. But would they not have had to have hired somebody to do that? Probably. And when it comes to painting, and you may be thinking, well, maybe they painted it because there was violence covering up blood or something like this. I'm certainly open to that. But did nobody notice other cars pulling up there and people taking paint out? Or was this all done in the middle of the night? And I think what I'm saying here is this seems like a lot of work to cover up an abduction. Certainly does. Of course, the abduction that is all on our minds right now is Nancy Guthrie. And we know that she was abducted. Of course, her home was not renovated. Her home was not repainted on the inside. It doesn't seem like anything was altered inside, all, at least publicly from what we know. Maybe there were things that were broken or whatever else, but nobody's alleging, somebody took her and then went back inside and, took her furniture out and everything else. I mean, if the house was empty inside, that means like the couch is gone, the chairs are gone, the TV's gone, the bed's gone, and all these things. I mean, is this house secluded? Does it have like a long driveway and sits back off the road where somebody could go in and do these things without being noticed? I don't know. I've not checked Google Satellite View, Street View. I'm sure with the databases that I use for the podcast, I could figure out what address this is. But to be honest, I've not done that. But this seems like a lot of work, especially considering that if Nye pings somebody, of course, we have to be open to the idea maybe the son was involved in it. Of course, the way this is written, it doesn't seem, at least publicly, like that's an idea, but it very well could be. If you took Nye ping and then you're going back in there with gallons of paint and taking stuff out, are you really risking somebody coming by, one of Nye ping's friends or a family member or a neighbor, and really risking trying to explain what you're doing and why Nye ping is, well, where's Nye ping? I didn't know this was going on. He didn't tell me he was moving. He didn't tell me he was getting renovation. Well, where is he? You're painting his house. Well, where is he? Wouldn't you really be risking all of that? You'd think. In addition, if it is true that people were trying to rent his place out, they can't figure out who was doing that. They couldn't answer one of those ads and see what happens, just to see. And if they're renting it out, what was if somebody actually bought into this and said, oh yeah, it's an Airbnb. Let's just say it's Airbnb. There's no allegations of that, but let's say it was on Airbnb. And the person shows up and there's no furniture there or anything. Isn't this then going to cause something? There is I think what I'm saying here is that within all of this, something's not right. I guess what I'm saying is it challenges my imagination that somebody showed up and said, we're going to take this guy and then we're going to renovate his house and we're going to take his cars and we're going to try to sell them. Of course, selling cars, that's a good way to get caught doing something, because you got to remember, if you're selling some missing person's cars, the crime you have to worry about isn't the selling of the cars. It's going to be, where is the owner of this car or these cars? So why would somebody do that? Why would somebody, and I know you're so, well, for the money, and I realize there's a lot of stupid criminals out there. And I realize there probably have been times when people have been murdered and maybe their car was sold on the street, just cash, something like that. Sounds like an episode of Law and Order that I just watched recently, something like that. But when you put it all together, cars, painting, renovation, I'm not even sure, I'm not much of a Lowe's, Home Depot guy. What does renovation mean? New rugs or something, or no? But all the furniture is gone as well. This is a lot of work, especially when you consider that you would need like a U-Haul or a van that you'd probably have to rent. And what if somebody saw it and then somebody might get a license plate number and then it can be tracked? And of course, when it comes to U-Hauls and everything, you can't rent that stuff using cash. You're going to have to use a credit card. And even if it's a fraudulent card, that's just going to be more of a paper trail and everything. You're just risking more to get caught, like I said. And on top of this all just happens to happen when his wife's gone. I'm pretty sure I guess what I'm saying is this was not an abduction like Nancy Guthrie. As I stated, I think I stated this the first time around when I commented on it a year ago. I'm not a big, I have investments. I'm a fairly conservative investor, I guess you'd say. Mutual funds and things like that. I'm not getting into day trading and all EFTs and all that. That just goes right over my head. It just doesn't do anything for me. But I guess what I would say, my perception of cryptocurrency and everything, this is exactly the type of disappearance that you think, you read about cryptocurrency and you think the kind of abduction or disappearance that would go along with it. This is exactly the kind of thing that you would think. The issue is that the guy, this older gentleman, Nai Ping, who is 74 years old, he was not the one who was involved in the cryptocurrency. His son was. And I realize there are all these stories about people getting ripped off or rich off of cryptocurrency. I happen to think it's all hype. I can't rule out the idea that, yes, this had something to do with cryptocurrency, but more likely something that his son was involved in. And was there, some sort of retribution or something like that? This is still a year later where my mind goes. Of course, obviously, we've not covered any disappearances like this on Unfound. And we've covered, some bizarre ones, certainly. But if this were an Unfound episode, I don't know who I could talk to in Naiping's family that I could trust. I realize that the son's being interviewed and everything, but given the circumstances, I got to be honest, I don't know if I could trust everything this guy says just because of everything I've said so far. I think I'd want to, if I were to cover a disappearance like this, I think I would be looking for somebody outside of the family. I think I'd maybe be looking for one of Nai Ping's friends, some man or woman in their 70s who had known him for a long time, or a neighbor, something like that. That I think would be much more constructive than trying to interview anybody in his family, because I just can't rule out the idea that maybe this did have something to do with his family. Where my mind also goes, and maybe you've seen some of this, is that, they were Chinese, or they are Chinese. I think they're American citizens. But the Chinese government does have agents here in the United States who keep tabs on Chinese people. And, maybe you've even seen the news in the last few years where they even have Chinese police stations set up, of course, very secretly, I guess you might say. It's not obvious, not like they put a big sign out front, but let's just say it's a building, and there are actually Chinese citizens who live there. Maybe they're on visas or something. And they're not just regular people. They're actually members of the Chinese military. And they keep tabs on people who were in China and moved to the United States. And they are known to track them around. They are known to keep tabs on them. They are known to send information about what these people are doing back to China. If these people are here and speaking ill of the Chinese government, if they're taking part in protests against the Chinese government. So I also start to think about, well, with Nai Ping, was he on, some sort of list from the Chinese government? Because you have to admit, this seems like a pretty big operation. Like I said before, as we all know, we know what an abduction looks like, and we even caught some of it on video. Nancy Guthrie, we know what a regular, quote unquote, regular abduction looks like. This is not a regular abduction. This sounds like an operation. This wasn't one guy in a mask showing up at somebody's house at 2 a.m. and taking one person away. This had to have been done by multiple people, removing of the furniture, the painting, the renovation, the taking of the cars. This was an operation done by multiple people. And the swiftness and the completeness of this, at least the way it makes it sound in all the articles that I've seen, it kind of does feel like a military / government operation, doesn't it? Kind of does. And you do hear these stories. I'm not saying it's never happened. We have 330, 340 million people here. We have a lot of jets and ships leaving the United States all the time, going all over the world. And, you hear about people being whisked away. I don't think it happens as much as some conspiracy theorists would say, but is this something that we should consider for Nai Ping's disappearance and considering the completeness of it? I think so. I'm not saying I necessarily believe that, but it's something to seriously consider. Because I know a lot about disappearances. There's nobody that's more well-read on disappearance than I am. That doesn't mean I know every disappearance or anything. And of course, many of you send me disappearances. Hey, Ed, have you heard about this one? Hey, Ed, have you heard about that one? And a lot of times it's no. But I think you also understand I'm pretty well-read. And I know, a lot of different kinds of disappearances. You don't run into too many disappearances where somebody goes missing and they go to the person's house and it's been repainted, the furniture's gone, the car's gone, it's renovated inside, and everybody's like, we don't know what happened. That is pretty rare. In fact, it reminds me of, have you ever seen the movie Capricorn 1 from the 1970s? James Brolin, O.J. Simpson, Sam Waterston, of course, from Law and Order. Multiple people, multiple well-known people in that movie. It's about a fake mission to Mars. But there is a scene where this reporter, played by Elliot Gould, who played Monica's father on Friends. He also used to be married to Barbra Streisand. He plays a reporter, and he shows up at this guy's house, this guy's apartment, who was supposed to give him some secret information. And he goes and knocks on the guy's apartment, and some woman answers. And he's like, where is my friend? She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. That friend, I'll just pick out John Smith. No, John Smith doesn't live here. No, my friend lives here. I've been here many times. I don't know what you're talking about. And Elliot Gould forces his way in, and everything's been changed. It's her magazines on the table and everything else. And of course, that was a government operation. They made this guy disappear because he figured out that the mission was fake. They had to disappear him. This kind of what this Nai Ping disappearance sounds like, doesn't it? It does. So maybe I'm talking myself into some sort of government conspiracy. Michelle says, great movie. It is. It is available on Amazon Prime. If anybody is interested, I think it's Amazon Prime. Yeah, it's a spectacular movie. Yeah. As I continue to say, movies from the 1970s. I think if I were stuck on a deserted island, and if I had one decade in which to pick out movies, it would be the 1970s. So 1970 and 1979, I would be set. I realize that there'd be movies that I'd have to leave out of that, but you just give me the 1970s, I'm fine. And so many movies like that, like The Parallax View, with Warren Beatty, of course, All the President's Men, about Watergate, Network, of course, Rocky, the Godfather movies, Patton, on and on and on, The French Connection. But yeah, Capricorn 1, spectacular. If you've not seen it, it's really good. It's really, I mean, it kind of has a little bit of 70s cheese to it. Really good. Really, I could watch that movie anytime. So I do see some parallels here. What do you all think? Marathon Man, yes, Sub Rosa Marathon Man, absolutely, with Dustin Hoffman. Is it safe? Is it safe, Sub Rosa? Is it safe? If you have not seen that movie, you'll have to go see it to see what I mean. So, I would also add regarding this, of course, all this money that he lost. I'd certainly want to know, why didn't the bank, wherever he had his money, alert anybody? What's the bank have to say about that? The bank isn't named, but he had money in there and it all converted to gold. I know with my bank, I mean, if I use my ATM card too many times in one day, they're calling me up. Hey, Ed, is that you? His bank just allowed him to liquidate whatever he had and turn it into online gold. And that makes me then think, are we sure that Nai Ping just didn't cause his own disappearance? Are we sure that didn't happen? But if I were to find out what bank that is, I would urge all of you, get your money out of that bank. It just seems like there's so many loose ends with the selling of the cars, the renting out of the place or whatever. It's a year later and still nobody seems to have any idea, at least publicly, what's going on. I have renovations, my notes. What? So abductors do renovations now? They were doing, that's a little bit humorous. I'd want to know whose name is on the property now. How complete was this change? And this is not a thing. People get ripped off for the money, sure, but cars, house renovations, that's crazy. I could also be open to the idea, did Nai Ping maybe get mixed up with maybe some pretty young woman while his wife was gone? So there's that. And of course, you can also see those stories about what they call honeypots, women who are agents of the Chinese government, smoothing up to married men and entrapping them and everything. Once again, it's out there. This happens. One more reason I'm glad I'm a single guy. So could that have happened here? How did they even pick this guy out? If this were a thing, and of course, old people do get fooled. My dad gets crazy emails. We know all these stories that people have lost their fortunes, to Nigerian print scams and everything. But this is fairly unique, but this is the only story we have about this. Some guy disappearing and his house renovated. So whatever happened here, fairly unique, I think. Great movie, Merritt D. Well, there is stuff going on in New York where people are stealing houses. Yeah, with paperwork, but renovations and everything, D. This seems like next level. A little bit about this. Certainly, there are people out there scamming people out of their houses and stuff. This doesn't sound like that. There's an element of that, but it seems like it's so much more. Hello, Mary. What's going on? Good to see you. All right, so that's that. That's the best I have on this. It could be maybe Nai Ping did this all himself. He didn't want anybody to know where he was going. Maybe he didn't want to be married anymore. He liquidated all of his assets and moved to Canada or something. I don't know. Could be a Chinese government operation. Could be that his son got in over his head with crypto and needed to liquidate all of his father's stuff. Not sure which direction that's going to go. Hoping this does get solved soon. All right, let's move on to Brandy Hall. This is a disappearance that was on Disappeared, the TV show. This is a disappearance that I know has been featured on YouTube channels, other podcasts over the years. Of course, it's not been featured on Unfound yet. And it's really weird that this is the disappearance that was in my mind, but it just kind of went way, 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 way into the background. And then just within the last few days, when I started looking at, which one am I going to analyze? I came across it and I was like, oh, yeah. I don't know if I've ever talked about. I don't know if her disappearance has ever been a topic on this live show. And I've been doing this live show for almost 9 years now. So it's especially unique, interesting, considering this is a Florida disappearance, although it happened over there on the Florida coast. So I'm going to do what I usually do. I'm going to read a large bit just to explain the disappearance to you. I realize a lot of you know the generalities of Brandy's disappearance, still unsolved. And then I'm going to pose a bunch of different questions, things that I would ask one of her family members, somebody I could trust, anything that is still on my mind. To me, once again, in a consultation situation where I would take the conversation, being that I'm doing that now, and then I'm going to do my analysis and try to best figure out what exactly happened to Brandy Hall, because we have to remember her disappearance is almost 20 years old now. All right, so from the Charlie Project, Brandy was last seen leaving the Malabar Volunteer Fire Department, where she worked in the 1800 block of Malabar Road in Malabar, Florida, at 10:45 p.m. on August 17th of 2006. She was supposed to work a full night shift, but left work early, saying she needed to go home. She drove away in her green Chevy truck and has been never heard from again. Her truck was found submerged in a nearby pond off Treeland Boulevard the following day. A photograph of the truck is posted with the case summary. A substantial amount of blood, of Brandy's blood, proven to be Brandy's blood eventually, was found inside the truck, although there was not enough blood to prove she was dead. Brandy's firefighting equipment was also found in the pond, as was her cooler. So the truck's in there, but her firefighting equipment is not in the truck in the water, is actually outside the truck in the water as this cooler. The soda and beer in the cooler were still cold to the touch. I don't know if that means anything. An extensive search of the pond turned up no sign of Brandy's remains. Authorities do not believe her body is there. Maybe going back to like Donald Irwin. Remember when he was eventually found, his car was found in that pond. His body was not found in his car, but his body was eventually found in that body of water. For Brandy, that did not happen. Brandy's backpack was found in a canal in western Indian River County, Florida, in June 2007, 10 months after her disappearance. So far from where her truck was found is where this backpack of hers was found by accident. Inside were some of her personal belongings. So to continue on this, and like I said, I know many of you know about her disappearance. What had been going on in Brandy's life is that her husband, who was also a firefighter, I believe, he and a friend of his had somehow gotten caught growing marijuana here in Florida. And they were making quite a bit of money doing that. I don't know if I put it in the article. They weren't making like $1 million a year or anything, but let's just say it was some nice supplemental income that they didn't have to pay taxes on. We'll just put it that way. And I forget, I didn't write it in my notes how they got caught or anything, but her husband and the friend, they were going to jail. Brandy was not a part of, I guess she could adequately say that she did not know what her husband was doing. I'm not sure that I believe that. But there were no pending charges against her for this particular crime. In fact, it said authorities have found no evidence that Brandy's disappearance was related to her husband's drug trafficking. And Jeffrey has been ruled out as a suspect in his wife's disappearance. He had an alibi for that night. And in fact, coincidentally or not, maybe, it was the next day when her husband was going to be sentenced, and Brandy fully intended to be there. And maybe I remember that maybe she was even going to be allowed to say something, before sentencing or maybe leniency or something like that, maybe. But she planned on being there the next day. Of course, she didn't show up. She was not there. She planned to attend his sentencing hearing to support him the next day on August 18th of 2006. So Jeffrey stated that they had a good relationship in spite of his legal difficulties, but others maintain his arrest caused major problems in their marriage. Brandy was having an affair with a married fire captain, Randall Richmond, at the time of her disappearance. And Richmond is the last person to have seen her. Yeah, she was going to the court next day, but not as a defendant, just to support her husband. But because of all of this, she had lost her job at the paying fire department. And this Malabar fire department, I think that she was just volunteering there. So she had no job. She got fired because of what her husband was doing. And at the time, she was trying to find something else to do with her life. She was still, like I said, she was going to be a volunteer. But I think when it came to work, she was actually going to have to get some paying job that was outside the realm of firefighting, I'm thinking. So who knows what. But she was trying to do that at the time of her disappearance. But like I also stated, it is now known that she was having an affair with a married fire captain, Randall Richmond. I'm guessing that he was like her superior at the job that she got fired from. I don't know that for a fact, but I think so. So Brandy had a lot of things going on. Of course, she also had kids. And so her husband's going to jail. She lost her job. She has these kids. She has no income. She's cheating on her husband. She had a lot going on. And on top of that, like it said here to start this, she was supposed to work a full night shift that night at the Malabar volunteer fire department. But instead, she left. And it is now known that she went to Randall Richmond's house. And he denied that for months. You know, he did not come right out and say, yeah, she was here. He denied that for a long time, but of course they had her phone records. And she and Randall had exchanged many, many messages and text phone calls that night before she showed up at his place. And of course, he doesn't want to talk about why she was there. Brandy's family stated she was stressed over unemployment and the charges against her husband, but they do not believe she would have abandoned her two young children. The night before she disappeared, she spent time looking through the phone book for places to work. So, just some of my perceptions before I get into my questions. Perception. It's kind of a unique disappearance that has been forgotten. It's important to remember that Brandy was not going to jail for anything, but everything that had gone on had made her life very tough. She had to be stressed out. There were 80 calls and texts between Brandy and Randall Richmond before she left the Malabar Volunteer Fire Department that night. And Randall denied he for weeks that the two were having an affair. Of course, she's married, he's married. And it's somewhat accepted now that she did go to Randall's house that night. So going back to her saying that she was leaving because she needed to go home, well, that was a lie. What have I said many times? How many times do we find out that missing people, before they go missing, they lie for whatever reason? Brandy was one of those. She told all of her fellow firefighters there, I'm going home. She wasn't going home. She went to Randall's. Now, whether she could actually tell them that, probably not. But I think it's still something to note. Now, and of course, the truck was found very quickly, and I'll get into all of that. Now, I realize you're probably looking at all this and saying, well, I got the married guy, Randall Richmond, and everything. I'm going to try to break this down as best as I can and I'm going to try to not take anything for granted here. Because I will tell you, I think the analysis of this disappearance has been off a little bit. Not outrageously, but a little bit. So if I were talking to somebody in her family or somebody who knew her, knows everything about Brandy, and what are the questions that, hello, Jen, how are you? What are the questions that I would be asking these people or person in a consultation, a private consultation situation? Well, what exactly was going on between Randall and Brandy? Okay, they were having an affair. Okay, but was it an open secret? Did everybody around the fire department know? Did Brandy's husband know? Did Randall's wife know? How long was it going on? How did it start? And we have to remember, at least I don't know if Randall had any kids, but Brandy had kids. She has a husband. She has a job. How exactly was this happening, given that she was married and had kids and had a full-time job and everything else? How exactly was she making this all work? Does anybody have any guess? Like I said, I realize it's very easy to jump to the conclusion Randall did this. I get that. But for me, I would really want to know the substance of this. Had it been going on for just a month, or it had been going on for a year? Was Randall telling Brandy that he was going to leave his wife and the two were going to be together? Was this just a fling? Were they swingers? What are we talking about here? I'd really, really, really need to know that. We just can't say, oh, they were having an affair and just leave it at that. You need the context. Regarding where the truck was found, was this a unique place where the truck was found? And I realize there's maps out there and everything, but is this a place that Brandy would have been driving by all the time? Is this a little body of water that Randall would have been driving by all the time? Is this a place that the fire department would have been driving by all the time? Because I'm inclined to believe that when people do these such things and dispose of vehicles or even bodies, that they do it in areas that are familiar to them. So how familiar was this little body of water to go back up here off Treeland Boulevard? How familiar was it to everybody, including locals? I'd want to know more about that. What I'd also know, and this is something that I have to consider, because if you're going to tell me, as it says here, that there was blood in the truck, but they really, really, really couldn't determine it would have been enough for her to die, then of course I have to start asking the question, did Brandy have the skills to take blood from herself? Remember, firefighters, I don't know where you are, but where I live, a lot of times when 911 is called for a health issue, ambulance shows up and the fire department shows up. That's how it happens here in Pinellas County. I realize other places it's different. Like where my dad lives, ambulance shows up, fire department doesn't show up. But we know that oftentimes firefighters have life-saving skills. They get taught CPR and everything else. Well, and of course we know EMTs have the ability to use needles and all of those things. So would Brandy, in her training to be being a firefighter and all that kind of stuff, would she have the ability to take her own blood? Because we have to remember, when you go to give blood, that's not something I would ever do because I hate needles and everything else. You give like a pint of blood. And certainly the human body can lose. You can safely lose a pint of blood when you give blood. And I know it can make people kind of woozy for a while and everything, but eventually your body will make more blood and, it'll refresh it and you'll be fine. The human body can lose quite a bit of blood and still function. So I would want to know, are we sure this wasn't Brandy setting up, making it look like she died when she didn't? So I'd want to know more about her skills of taking blood, etc. Hello, Sweet Berry. What's going on with you tonight? I'd want to know, did Brandy die in the truck or was she simply transported? Of course, with the blood in the vehicle, is there any way to determine if she did die? Did she die in the vehicle or did she die outside of the vehicle and then somebody put her in her vehicle? Is there any way to determine that? Was the blood in the front seat? Was it in the back seat? Was it both? We need to know more about that. It's just not enough to say blood was in the truck. That doesn't tell you much. Regarding those 80 calls, texts, and everything else, I'd also want to know more about all the other calls and texts that she had been getting. I realized they're going to concentrate on that night that she went missing, and I can understand why they were really concentrating on Randall Richmond and everything. But is there anybody else on her phone list that we need to know about? Besides her husband, besides Randall, besides female friends, and are there any numbers that could not be determined? Maybe people on the list that didn't want to talk. Certainly, would need to know more about that. It's very easy to, once again, to jump to Randall Richmond and these 80 calls and texts and everything. But let's make sure we're not missing something in the process. I'd also want to know, did Brandy have life insurance? I'd really want to know more about that. And of course, she's married. Of course, most married people do have life insurance between them. Of course, it depends on, what it's worth. Depends on maybe the, how much the people can afford. I'd really want to know about that because that's going to play a part when I get to my analysis, which is next. Rockford making his first appearance tonight. Hello, Rockford. Had any women been texting her? Yeah. Wasn't there some argument at a fair or carnival or something with one of the other wives? Kind of vaguely remember that, but that was not in my reading to study this, Rockford. But you very well may be right. Sure. And was that wife Randall Richmond's wife? Something, something would want to know about. But I think that calls and texts, I think, might be able to sort all of that out. So here is my analysis. Obviously, Randall Richmond you don't need to be a missing persons expert. And I realize that a lot of people, I think when it comes to her disappearance, that's as far as they go. Well, she said she was going home, but instead she went to his house. He, his lips are sealed about whatever. And even though there's all these texts and everything, he still didn't want to talk about them having an affair, even though it must have been somehow that they were able to prove, maybe through credit card charges or video or something, that the two had been together, maybe told other people. So obviously he has to be the focus. Obviously, Glenn, if she was a basic EMT, she would not have that training. Some stay there. Everyone needs to know about Glenn is he is in a very, very good place to talk about medical stuff. I know him well enough to say that. Some states have advanced EMTs that may, but drawing blood is a paramedic level skill. All right. So would want to know, does Brandy have paramedic level? Did she have level skills? I have no idea. I'd certainly want to know that. So Randall Richmond, you don't have to be a missing persons expert to think, well, did he kill her and try to cover it up? Certainly. I think that's where everybody mostly goes on Brandy's disappearance. The problem is, then what's the problem? She went to see him. They're having an affair. There's blood in the truck. The truck has been dumped in this. Obviously, somebody was trying to get rid of something. But Randall Richmond has never been charged with anything. And I think that if friend of the podcast, Tad Tobias, was here, he and I could have a good conversation about whether there's enough to charge Randall Richmond. And that'd be up for Tad would be, of course, the expert on that. It does seem that there would be a pretty strong circumstantial case, being that Randall didn't want to talk about the affair, didn't come forward to say that Brandy was at his house. They had to figure that out in different ways. Certainly. Stacy says, I was a park ranger and we did fires in the woods. I only had CPR training. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you. Okay. But here's what catches my attention. We have to remember, her truck was found the next day. Of course, we know about many disappearances where trucks or vehicles aren't found for decades. Of course, we had that family was up in Oregon or somewhere. The whole family went missing and the car was underwater for like 60 some years and everything. Of course, you have Esther Westenbarger. Her car was missing for almost a decade. Donald Irwin for many, many years. And so here we have what seems to be a murder, maybe, but the murderer can't even get rid of the truck in a way that the truck goes missing for like even 2 or 3 days. The truck is found right away. Forget how it was found. Maybe it just wasn't submerged enough. So my perception is this was not something that was planned. Whatever happened to Brandy Hall was not planned. Somebody didn't think this all out and say, I got to get rid of that truck and I know the perfect place to do it and I'm going to drive it there and they're never going to find it. This seems to be somewhat haphazard. Maybe done very quickly, not a very serious plan to cover up a murder, but that's kind of the thing. You would think if this is a murder, that somebody, if they're going to attempt to get rid of a truck, they really want to make sure that they do it. Now, of course, we know about disappearances on Unfound where we think that the car owner, the car driver has been murdered, but the cars weren't disposed of at all. Of course, right down the street, Kelly Rothwell, who went missing like 4 miles down the road from where I sit. What did surely the boyfriend in her life do? He didn't try to push it into the Gulf right here off the beach. He didn't try to put it in the bay, which is right over here. He could have easily done that. What did he do? He drove it a mile down the road, ditched it in a parking lot, and most likely ran back to the place where he killed her. And of course, unfortunately, he's gotten away with it till now. She's still missing. But if we're to think that this was a murder and that he, let's say it's Randall Richmond, planned to get rid of the, you'd think you'd be very, very motivated to make this work. Didn't work out. This sticks out to me. In addition, I have a hard time understanding if Randall Richmond murdered her, what exactly was the motive? What was the reason? I realize that motive is not an element of the crime. All I have to do to prove they did it doesn't matter what the reason was. But to think about it, being that we don't know, what happened, if we're to consider that he harmed her, well, what exactly was the reason? I know it's very easy to say, well, they were having an affair. So what changed? Remember, this whole thing about her husband going to jail, this had been brewing for a long time. And so that's when it goes back to we need to know more about this affair. How much did Randall's wife know and everything else? It's just unclear to me that it was so serious if something was going on here that he needed to murder her to make it go away, because we have to remember something. Everybody now knows 20 years later about the affair that they were having. Did it affect Randall Richmond's life that much when everybody found out? I don't know. If you're going to tell me that his wife divorced him, took him for everything, and he ended up being homeless, okay, well, then maybe that's a motive. But I doubt it. I doubt that's what happened. Now, the question is, would he be able to know that beforehand? Would he think the worst, and thus he has to get rid of Brandy? It's just hard to say. To me, easy for me to talk, being that I'm not married, this doesn't seem as strong a reason as I think it has been portrayed the last 20 years. It just doesn't seem that way. Like I said, everybody knows that there was an affair. Now, everybody knew, very shortly after this all went down and she went missing, everybody found out, how much did that really hurt Randall? Did he lose his job too? Maybe he did. What's he done with his life the last 20 years? So it's just not clear to me that this is just an outright murder. So she goes over there and something happens and he has to kill her for some reason, or his wife's all ticked off and she kills her and covers it up. And, then the truck gets ditched. You'd think like I said, I've said it a couple times. You'd think if you were going to get rid of the vehicle, you'd do a lot better than that. So in addition, if there was blood in the truck, so they used her vehicle to transport her body somewhere and then ditch the truck there. That seems like a lot of work. I can see why they would use her vehicle, but you don't even try to clean it up on the inside. Not even try to wipe it down or anything. In addition, remember, it said there wasn't enough blood inside that to probably kill her. So did something happen inside the truck? It's just hard to tell, without being more precise, whether it was the blood in the front seat or the back seat. Was it in both? It was like 50% in the back. Was it split 50-50? Was it 75 in the back? This all matters. And it's easy to gloss over this stuff, but in my opinion, it matters. Could she have faked her death? This goes back to her ability with blood. Could she have faked her death? Couldn't handle it. And maybe they knew this day was coming. And she goes over to Randall's to kind of establish something, and then she drives off and dumps the blood in the truck, pushes it in, pushes it into the thing kind of haphazardly, maybe hoping that people would find it. I know it's very complicated. But then you have to start thinking, well, to what end? If she faked her own death, put the blood in there, to what end? Now, of course, we know Mary Jane Van Gilder successfully pulled it off, started a whole new life. We know about that. I'm open to that idea. I'm especially open to it if somebody's going to tell me, yeah, she had the ability to take out her own blood. So you can start thinking maybe the weeks before she takes the blood out, I got all the plans. My husband's going to jail. I lost my job. I got nothing to live for. I need to start a new life. I'm going to fake my own death. And we know there are people who have faked their own deaths, usually not successfully, but people surely have attempted it. But if you were to buy into this then would explain why the truck was found so easily. In that she kind of sort of like wanted it to be found, but didn't want to make it obvious. Very complicated. Not my top theory, but it's something to think about. So then what do I think happened? What exactly went down on that night with Brandy Hall? I got to tell you out and out, I do not believe this was a murder. I don't believe it was just simply she goes over there and Randall or the wife shoots her, and then he or they or whoever have to cover it up. I don't think that happened. It just is a little too pat. First of all, we have to think about this. Why did she go over there? Now, it very well may be to, tell his wife or something like that. I'm not convinced of that. Her life is already complicated enough. What are we doing here? In addition, she's at this volunteer fire department. She doesn't know that she's going to die, maybe, that night or disappear that night. And, you have to figure she's leaving early. She's supposed to be. It's kind of undermining the confidence that anybody at that fire department is going to have in her. Why would she do that? Why? Just to confront Randall Richmond. I think that she knew when she left. I think that she wasn't worried about leaving that night because I think that she knew she wasn't coming back. Here's what I think happened. I think that, of course, being that she was, having an affair with Randall Richmond, it very well may be that she thought that being that the two are an item, of course, she lost her job. She's going to be having money problems. I'm guessing that she went to Randall Richmond's house to try to convince him to help her out. And you may say, well, yeah, then she tried to do that and she might have threatened to go forward with the affair. Well, that comes back to, well, now everybody knows about the affair. How bad was the fallout from everybody finding out? It doesn't seem it was that bad. So Randall Richmond would not be overtly motivated to shutting Brandy up. My perception. Rockford, the last time I dove into this case, I recall having the idea that it's maybe foul play with a woman's touch. I'll reconsider after pondering your points in another podcast covering it now. Is there another podcast doing that? I didn't even know that. I think she went over to ask Randall Richmond for help. And when he said, you know what, I can't do that. I'm married and I know we are, but now that everything's out, I think I'm going to have to go back to my wife and everything. I think Brandy Hall committed suicide in her truck. And I think Randall Richmond covered up because he was a friend of hers. Once again, they're having an affair and everything, but they were working together and everything. And I think he covered it up because I think he knew, remember, insurance companies don't pay out for suicides. You commit suicide, you blow any sort of compensation, whether it's from work, insurance you may get through your job. And my guess is being that she's with this volunteer fire department, there may be some sort of policy or something like that they get for just even volunteering like they do. There's certainly some sort of insurance policy if they get hurt or something like that. I think she committed suicide because of all the problems, no money, no job, husband going to jail. She lost her favorite job. She wants to be a firefighter. Now she's going to have to volunteer, which is basically working for free. And when Randall wouldn't help her out, I think she committed suicide. Did she have a gun or something? Probably. This is Florida. And he covered up because he knew if her body was found that no insurance policy would pay out. And there would be no compensation or anything else. And that's why, she commits, what's he going to do? She commits suicide in his driveway and he's just going to leave her there. That's what I think happened. I think she went over there asking for help. She wanted him, to help her out. Hey, give me, a couple dollars or anything else. And he says, I can't do that. She kills herself. He covers it up because it's in his driveway and everything. Haphazardly disposes of the truck because why? Of course, he didn't expect her to commit suicide that night and had to do something quick. And then he got rid of the body because if they find the body, then it's going to show that she committed suicide. And as long as her body's not found and all they have is blood in the truck, they can never prove that she committed suicide. And it can always be held up as a murder. Maybe she faked her death or something like that instead of her committing suicide. That's where I am. Like I said, when I started this just does not strike me as just a straight out, she shows up, he murders her, or the wife murders her or something like that. D, what I ask him, D says, if death was at home, not the fire meeting. Rockford, a reputable podcast that has cited your work favorably in the past is doing a series on the case. I'll get back to you when it concludes. All right. Well, if they speak favor of me, can't be all bad, Rockford. I think that's what happened. I think she committed suicide and he covered it up. She was distraught. Obviously, 80 texts and calls. She was distraught. And what I would also say, if this was something along the lines of she was going over there to confront his wife and do everything, there would be no 80 calls and texts. She wouldn't even gone to the volunteer. She wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't even showed up there. She just would have blown it off and gone straight over there to air it all out. She was distraught. Who wouldn't be? And as long as that is the situation, I have to go in a suicide direction. And I think everything since then has been an effort to cover up a suicide, to protect her reputation, to protect any sort of insurance policy they might have had, to protect the children, on and on and on. Now, of course, that means she's still out there somewhere, deceased. And my guess is probably Randall Richmond's property has been searched. But, if you're going to go through that effort to make it look like something, you're just not going to put that body in your backyard. And given that I know that her backpack was found a ways away in another body of water, I'm inclined to think that probably her body was put in some other body of water. And of course, we have these animals in Florida called alligators. This is a disappearance, to me, that has a very, very, very low chance of being solved. To be very honest, very sad. But if there's anything I could convince you tonight, I don't think this is a murder, of course, in the way we think murder. She shows up, he shoots her, he kills her, and covers it all up. I just don't think that everything since then would have played out like it did, like it has, if this were a murder. I think the truck would have never been found. I don't think that somebody would have disposed the truck, allowing the blood and everything to be found in the truck. I just don't think. Now, as far as anybody else, if there are other suspects, I know. I guess over the years, people have said, "What about some of the other weed growers or something like that? That's who did it." That seems very, very unlikely to me. It sounds very, very unlikely. If that were happening, we'd be having people like Brandy Hall go missing and murdered all the time. We don't. Certainly, drug deals can cause murders and things, but not something like this. Not something like this. If this was like gang related or drug dealing related, maybe we have a Jeff Joseph situation, Donnie Smatlack situation. But if they're going to leave blood in the car and everything, they just would have left the truck out somewhere. Pretty sure. So best guess, Randall Richmond covered up Brandy's suicide. I think she went to him for help. When he didn't help, she killed herself. She was distraught. He covered it up to protect himself, his reputation, at least try to attempt that and maybe get life insurance for her. He also hit her body for the same reason. Hence the rush job on the hiding of the truck. My second guess, being that Rockford brought it up, would be that Randall's wife killed her when Brandy arrived at the house. But I have to tell you, it is a distant second. Very, very distant second. So that's where I am. No matter what happened, I just don't see this disappearance being solved anytime soon, unless Randall Richmond wants to talk, or if somebody somehow by luck comes across her body somewhere. And certainly I think since then, it's been 20 years. I think her husband is out of jail. Does he do any interviews about her disappearance? I don't even know. I'm certainly open to talking to him. I'm certainly open to featuring this disappearance on Unfound. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe. All right, one more thing to do, and that is to briefly talk about the disappearance of Melissa Casias. She is a woman working at the Los Alamos National Lab in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And on her day of her disappearance, she did some strange things. She wasn't acting herself. Her daughter saw her. Her husband saw her. It doesn't seem that her husband makes a very good suspect in this. It seems like his alibi is pretty strong. Her daughter did see her and had given her mother a check to take to the bank or something. Her mother said she would do that, but later, this check that her daughter had given her, along with Melissa's phone and purse and everything, were found back at their house. So she didn't follow through on this promise that she had made her daughter. And on June 26th of 2025, around 2:18 p.m., a family acquaintance observed Melissa walking eastbound on New Mexico Road 518 from Talpa, New Mexico area towards Potts Creek. Every time I see something like that, a family acquaintance, well, you probably knew she was supposed to be at work. Why didn't you stop? Did you know her to be a walker? This is the thing that always gets my attention. And I saw her walking out there on that road. Well, you knew her well enough to know that she's not a walker, and you no reason to, why didn't you stop? Did you honk? Did you wave? These are the questions that always come to me. Well, allegedly, a family acquaintance saw her walking out on this road, Talpa, New Mexico, where she lived, walking towards Potts Creek. And I did look at this on a map. And as you would imagine, this area looks like all the rest of New Mexico. The sighting, which was about 3 miles from the Casias home, once again, why didn't this person stop, was also captured on security video from a local business, Kit Carson Electric Company. She was observed walking eastbound, wearing the clothing she was last reported to be wearing in the Taos Plaza. Light color shirt, jeans, light tennis shoes. It is difficult to tell if she appears distressed or not. Melissa's family believes she may have gotten into a vehicle shortly after she was seen on the video. I don't know why they think that's just, I don't know. They're just guessing. Around 2 p.m. on the middle of rush at work, the daughter began getting calls from her father. I could not get to the phone for another 20 minutes. So it was 2:30 when I finally got to the phone. The daughter said, I saw one of his voicemails. He sounded frantic, or just not frantic, but he sounded worried. And a lot of people are making, calling this mysterious, and is this part of the conspiracy and everything else. And as you would imagine, I think this is all crap. I realize that a lot of people who have covered this disappearance and have talked about it, they don't know anything about disappearances. This is a very, very common type of disappearance. There is nothing mysterious about any of this. It's a mystery because we don't know where she is and we don't know if she's alive or not. But everything described here should not be a surprise to anybody who knows disappearances. The walk-off is one of the most common types of disappearances. It doesn't matter if you're a law-abiding citizen who's never done any drugs. It doesn't matter if the person was a drunkie who dropped out of school in 8th grade. Walk-offs, very common, way more common than I could have ever guessed before, in starting Unfound. What exactly was going on with her? Hard to say. What I would want to know is, was she taking any medication? Because the first thing that comes to my mind, I very well could be wrong, is this sounds like some type of Ambien episode. Just Google it. All the people that have all these crazy stories about taking Ambien and doing things they didn't even know they were doing, driving around in their cars, coming home. People saw them. They don't remember being out there driving their cars. People going and cooking breakfast and going back to med, not being, Ambien is one of those things, as I learned when I was having my sleep issues, and it's the main reason I avoided it, is that if you take it and you are not actually in bed, the odds of you making it to your bed are not very good. The odds are very good you're going to end up doing anything else. And so it very well may be, I know this sounds crazy, it very well may be that she was going to see her daughter, talking to her husband and everything, and she didn't know what she was doing, even though it seemed like she did. It's very creepy. You can go see the stories. This to me sounds like that. Maybe exacerbated by stress or something. Maybe she was on some antidepressants or something. This sounds like an Ambien episode. And it very well may be that she thought she was in a dream when really it was real life. That's one of the things it can do. It's scary stuff. But it's certainly not a mystery. It certainly has nothing to do with her work or where she was working, Los Alamos and UFOs. Nothing. It's a common type of disappearance. And, when it comes to what happened to her, it's hard to believe. Of course, it very well could be that she's alive. I wouldn't say it's very likely. Eventually, if it was an Ambien episode, it does wear off. And the person's like, well, how did I get here? Of course, in the process, she might have walked herself out into the middle of nowhere and she didn't know where she was and died of the elements. But there's certainly nothing mysterious about it except for the fact that it's not. We don't know what happened. There's certainly nothing mysterious about these circumstances. So Melissa Casias, of course, if her family hears this, I'm more than happy to talk to them in a consultation. missingpersonsconsulting.com. So for this Friday, we'll be covering a disappearance that is certainly mysterious and unusual, and that is the disappearance of Rex Douglas. And Heather Grotman, blogger at the lostandfoundblogs.com, is the guest. She's already written about it. You can go over there and read about it, but she and I are going to talk about it. And I think this is he went missing in 1984. He was a preacher in Colorado. He took a plane to Missouri to allegedly take care of some business. Never returned to Colorado, never seen again. And it became obvious some months after his disappearance that Rex Douglas might not have actually been Rex Douglas. It's not on the Charlie Project. It is on NamUs. Like I said, go to the lostandfoundblogs.com to see what Heather has written about it. She's talked about it. But we're going to talk about it this Friday, my interview with her. We get into some theorizing, and I ask her all the tough questions. You can look that up. Once again, Rex Douglas. Rockford says regarding Brandy Hall, that's a really strong theory. I like it. I think the walk-off is so common that it needs subcategories. Oh, for Melissa. Okay, thank you, Rockford. Appreciate it. But that's all I have for you tonight. Rex Douglas, I got to Brandy Hall, crypto disappearance, Melissa Casias, and everything else. So I'm done tonight. I'm worn out. So everybody have a great week. We'll be, what else is going on? Everybody keep your heads on swivels out there. Do not become a victim. Do not end up on my podcast. Charlie, say hi to your sons for me if you would like. And that's all I have for you tonight. Everybody have a great week. We'll do this all again next Monday night. Good night.